Our next guest needs no introduction, but I'll give you one anyways. She was elected mayor of Montreal on Sunday night. Let's welcome Soraya Martinez Ferrada onto the program. Madame Martinez Ferrada, bienvenue à l'émission.
Merci. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. When do you become the mayor? What's the day where you're actually mayor and I can call you Madame la Mairesse?
On November 13th.
November 13th. Okay, so the clock ticking on that front. Why don't we just start off with, are you still on cloud nine? So since being elected on Sunday, what are the feelings that have been going through you since your election?
Well, honestly, I was at work on Monday. I actually met with the Director General of the city, had lots of meetings since Monday already. So I've been really up to the tasks. So I'm on the call, but happily and enthusiastic, but at work,
okay,
especially with the strike of STM right now.
Well, that's it. You've hit the ground running, and we have to talk about the STM strike. So, there's some headlines I'm seeing, and I've been talking about it, that you've given an ultimatum or you've given a deadline of 10 days. And I'm just trying to figure out how that actually works and what power you truly have, either now or when you're mayor on the 13th, to give a deadline or an ultimatum to STM employees. How does that work?
Well, I don't have the levers, as you know, because I'm not at the negotiating table. My role is make sure that the STM general manager and the unions get the message from our citizens that are, having the impact of the strike. And my role is making sure that they know that we're expecting them to negotiate at the table and to do it very quickly. The date of the 15th is actually the date of the next full strike that we could have in Montreal, and nobody wants that. We had it, especially during the campaign, as you know, on November 2nd, and I think all Montrealers don't want to go through that again. So that was the date of saying, well, we want to make sure that we're not getting into that again. And so they have to negotiate and they have to do it very quickly.
Does your ultimatum or your tough talk, does that signal that the still current administration, the Valérie Plante-Montréal administration, dropped the ball, that they didn't do enough in the previous months so that this wasn't left on your plate as you enter the role?
Well, you know what? I promised myself, and I promised when I was elected that I would not talk about what they did not do and did. And, I'm the designated mayor. At the task, I've met with the unions. I've met with the STM. I've talked to the media and citizens around what my expectations and what citizens of Montreal expectations are in this strike. And, I will leave it at that. It's not my role today to talk about what, Valérie Plante's administration did or did not do. Today, I'm, the mayor, and this is my role today. So
now you've heard the call from the Montreal Chamber of Commerce and other economic organizations in Quebec they're calling on the Labor Minister Jean Beaulieu to implement his law sooner than later, the new law that's coming into effect November 30th. What's your message to the Labor Minister? Does he need to act sooner than later?
Well, I mean, what I said to the unions and the STM is you need to negotiate now. If you don't, well, we have the Leader of Quebec saying that they might bring this earlier in the calendar, which at the end of the day, it's not good for negotiations. So at the end of the day, it'll give the union and the STM the pressure they need to make sure that they're at the table and negotiate.
At the end of the day, if we arrive to November 15th and there's no deals and there's no service, would you be in favor of the provincial government using legislation to end these strikes?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I think the 15th was a very symbol date in terms of having the strike on the 15th and the 16th, but I'm expecting them to be more quick on their feet in terms of negotiation. I will give them this weekend. We'll see how that goes. We'll see at the beginning of next week how that goes. And I'll assess the situation at that time.
All right, Madame Martinez Ferrada, I want to talk about a few other subjects here. One is I want to talk about you and how you're going to lead this city. I've found it very interesting how people have been reacting to your election. I've seen people on the Projet Montréal side. It became an issue at the end of the campaign where people are saying, "Oh, if you elect Madame Martinez Ferrada, it's a virage à droite," right? And clearly the business community was behind you in this election. But I'd love to know from your perspective, Where do you put yourself politically? I mean, you were in the Trudeau Liberal government. I would say that's a very left government that we saw in this country for a decade here. How would you
So
define yourself?
I've always defined myself since the beginning of the campaign in February, even when I launched my campaign in February. I'm a progressive, but a very pragmatic one. I want to make sure that people see movement. I want to make sure that people see results, but addressing issues and social issues that are important. Right now, homelessness is one of them. As you know, we have people sleeping in the streets. Winter is coming, and we need to take care of that. And so my role is make sure that people see that we have social issues, we have economic issues. So we are, I'm a progressive but pragmatic, and I think at the end of the day, Montrealers will see that I want to make sure that I serve and I'm useful and that I make a difference in people's lives, and that's what I expecting people to see during my administration.
So how will a progressive pragmatic deal with the encampments? We talked about it during the debate that we had here in our CJAD 100 studios. I mentioned to you then, I drove along Notre Dame East, and I was shocked with the number of encampments and right next to where people live. And the citizens who live there, they've had enough of it. It doesn't make them feel safe. So how does a progressive pragmatic deal with that issue this fall?
So, one, we can dismantle. If we do that, they'll go somewhere else. That's not addressing the issue. That's trying to hide the issue. So we need to make sure that we are tackling and have a protocol in encampments, making sure they're secure, that they're clean, that we have a protocol with the Montrealers that sleep in the tent, and that we make people that are the neighborhoods of that tent feel that they're safe. And that's the way that we need to do it. And at the end of the day, work on a transition plan that in 4 years, at the end of my mandate, people will see the difference. I don't want to say to people that I have a magic wand and then tomorrow morning tents will not be there. But I want to make sure that we're addressing the issue that at the end of our mandate, we have a solution for encampments in the city.
All right. I want to ask you, before I let you go, about bike paths, which was another issue that came up after this week that you were asked about. And I want to just get some answers here on audits and the studies that you're going to rely on. I would note that if they were studies done by the Projet Montréal administration, many people would say, well, if a study is ordered by a certain administration, they're clearly going to be towards a certain angle, right? Or maybe in the ideology of Projet Montréal. So how would you rely on studies done by a previous administration who may not be aligned with you and your goals to make a decision that's as important as what we do next on bike paths?
Well, so first of all, I was very surprised to find out that we had 2 reports that were not made public in the past. So that's first thing. We have to see those reports, and I'm waiting to see them. Hopefully, I'll get them today. The second thing is I asked to have a report of the police in terms of accidents or anything that, in terms of reports on the streets of Montreal, especially on the bicycle path. And I asked to see a complaint report from the 311. And I'm meeting with Vélo Quebec, and I'm hope to meet with them next week. After that, we'll see what else do we need. Because at the end of the day, I haven't changed my mind. We need to do an audit. We need to make sure that what we need to do on bicycle paths, in order to do, if we want to do more, we have to make sure that we have the right projects and the right connections in terms of bicycle paths right now. But if we did a report, citizens pay for that. So if I'm going to do another one, I want to make sure that I'm doing the right one. And if maybe I don't need to do one and pay for that, I won't do it. If that report's a good one, well, it's been paid for.
Okay, all that to say is yesterday I drove on Saint Antoine in front of the Bell Center, and that bike path has just created such a mess and different lanes, and you got to shift over. You're in the left lane. It's now the wrong lane because it only turns, and you've got to go. It's a mess. Is there a bike path? Forget about audits. Is there a bike path in this city that frustrates you as a driver?
Me? No. I have to say, my point is making sure that bicycle paths are mitigated for merchants, for seniors, for students, for people are blind that can't cross the street. I get the frustration of people in their cars in the traffic, but my priority is that safety is the number one thing, and that it talks about making sure that people can cross and making sure that people get the service that they need, and that's my priority. And I get the frustration of people in their cars, but right now the issue is making sure that bicycle paths and cross paths are safe, and that eventually, mobility has to be planned for all people, including cars and pedestrians, and bicycle paths. So that's my plan for the next 4 years.
Madame Martinez Ferrada, I have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining our listeners this morning.
Thank you. Have a good day.
That is Soraya Martinez Ferrada, the incoming mayor of Montreal.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian-owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years. And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.